Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Thursday, October 30th, 2014, and here are our top stories.
Tonight, exclusive. Feds order 250,000 hazmat suits for Dallas. Then, Project Veritas uncovers even more voter fraud. And the TSA resorts to sci-fi tyranny. That's next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
This isn't what a free country looks like. It's what a rat-infested third world cesspit looks like. You guys aren't protecting America. You're helping deep six it.
Well, adding to concerns that the Obama administration doesn't have all the cards on the table when it comes to the Ebola outbreak, we see this exclusive report from Paul Joseph Watson on InfoWars today that the U.S. government has ordered 250,000 hazmat suits to be sent to Dallas. Yes, this is a manager with a major shipping company exclusively revealed to InfoWars that this was shipped to Dallas. This is someone that we have vetted his credentials, but he wishes to remain anonymous. He said, "I just learned that we have been asked to ship 250,000 hazmat suits to Dallas, Texas for the U.S. government." Again, this is happening today. We are pulling these suits for the U.S. government to Dallas, Texas, says the individual who manages drivers who work for the large shipping company. And as Paul pointed out just yesterday, we reported that Lakeland Industries, which a month ago had said that they had sold 160,000 hazmat suits, talked about how the industry needed to step up. That was before the very first case of Ebola broke out in the United States. Actually, when they made that announcement, Obama was at the CDC telling us that Ebola was not going to be coming to the United States. Yesterday, they announced that they had sold 1 million suits, and overnight, their stock jumped by 30%. Now, an article from Popular Science today sheds light on how the Ebola virus is spread, what may be behind it, says how to give a mouse Ebola and what mouse Ebola can tell us about human infections. Now, they point out that regular mice don't get human Ebola, but they have manufactured genetically modified mice who can get it. They say a team of U.S. biologists has bred mice that, unlike most lab mice, can get Ebola. Like people, the newly minted mice don't all react the same way to an Ebola infection. Some will die with internal bleeding, swollen spleens, etc. Some will lose weight after getting infected, but recover with no lasting damage. Others suffer symptoms somewhere between those two extremes. Now, the interesting thing that they point out about this is that it kind of breaks down roughly along the same lines that we see in humans, with about 80% of the mice who are exposed to the Ebola getting it, about another 20% not showing any symptoms at all. And so this raises, I think, some interesting questions. Number one, if they have a mouse Ebola that is different from a human Ebola, where did that come from? And can these mice that they've now created to have human Ebola, can they carry it to humans? Is that something we need to worry about if that gets out of the lab, or if it is weaponized? Also, can non-symptomatic mice transmit this? This is something, of course, that we reported on Tuesday, that a Nobel Prize winner, and this is an article that's up on InfoWars today, says that people without symptoms can still spread it. And he points out along the lines of this article from Popular Science that about 20%, he says 13% of the people who are infected with Ebola never have fever. Now, this is an American medical doctor who won the Nobel Prize for Medicine and Physiology in 2011, is now the director of the Center for Genetics of Host Defense at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas. He says, it may not be absolutely true that those without symptoms cannot transmit the disease because we don't have the numbers to back it up, but it's possible that they could have a lot of these viruses, he says. In other words, a kind of Typhoid Mary scenario. Of course, Typhoid Mary was someone who famously had the disease, had no symptoms, and was able to transmit that to a lot of people. So if the mice can come down with this and not have any symptoms, and if some people can do that, anywhere from 13 to 20% can do that in the mice and in the people, is this something that we need to worry about? Of course, he says there is an imperative to prevent panic among the public, but we must not be dogmatic about how it's being transmitted. Now, one final thing that came out of that Popular Science article was they said it was very much an issue of DNA. Again, raising questions whether or not this new strain, and this is a new strain we've not seen before that was reported in multiple sources back in April, is this new strain that has already affected more than 4 times as many people as all the 32 previous outbreaks combined, is this new strain something that is weaponized, something that is targeted to a particular group with particular DNA. Now, the nurse who has defiantly said that she was not going to be kept under quarantine even made it more explicit today. She went on a bike ride just to defy the governor of Maine, who said he was going to try to enact a mandatory quarantine. Why does he have to do a mandatory quarantine with her? Why won't she abide by the standard procedures? Doesn't she have concern that she would not do harm to other people? It appears that she doesn't. Now, of course, she not only worked for Doctors Without Borders, but she also had connections to the CDC, along with the person who wrote the article. Now, today, they report multiple sources. This is from The Guardian. They say that she went for a bicycle ride. They say the Maine State Police followed her on her bike ride with her boyfriend to monitor her interaction with the public. The AP reports that Maine State Police cannot arrest her because they have not yet obtained a court order to do so. The governor later said that negotiations between her attorneys and the state had failed, and he would continue to pursue legal action. Now, understand that self-quarantine doesn't work. Look at the doctor who also worked for the same organization, Doctors Without Borders, who in fact did have Ebola, and he lied to the police, to the health personnel, telling them that he had not gone anywhere. It was only after they looked at his credit card records and called him on it that he admitted that he had gone for rides in public, he had gone to eat, he'd gone to play bowling. So even though he knows better, even though he's a doctor, he still lied. He did not put himself under self-quarantine. She's not doing that. She's modeling very dangerous and defiant behavior for the public. So she says that forced 21-day isolation orders are medically unnecessary, yet we've seen that self-quarantine is not working. The medical ethic of not doing any harm is not working. And understand that this is equivalent to getting a search warrant when you really do have a reason for a search warrant. There are times when there should be searches. What we're opposed to are warrantless searches. We're opposed to things like happens at the TSA. If she's so concerned about civil liberties, why isn't she speaking out about the TSA, for example, or some of these other issues? Look at what happened at the TSA. As we learned today, the TSA confiscated a sci-fi ray gun belt buckle. It just gets more absurd by the day. In their latest display of insanity, they report the TSA agents at LAX airport confiscated a belt buckle from a prominent videographer, telling him the reason was that it was, quote, shaped like a gun. And in his blog, he said, first they did a bag check, which happens every time I fly anywhere, so who cares? And they said, yeah, there's something in there that's kind of shaped like a gun. He says, yeah, it's a belt buckle. They called over the supervisor who looked at this thing and said, well, you know, you can either put it back in your luggage or we'll confiscate it. And he said the official explanation was that the TSA's policy is to reject all, quote, replica weapons. He said, I pointed out to them that if it was a replica, it would be a replica of a fictional weapon. And you can see that picture on the article there of Flash Gordon. That's what it would be a replica of. It's not even a replica of a real gun. And as we've seen, they go to the mat over these phony things that really are not a risk to us, and yet ignore the things that may be a risk. When you have someone who's been treating Ebola patients, and we see at the same time they put her under quarantine, a doctor who actually did come down with Ebola, who did not self-quarantine, and yet the TSA will go to absurd lengths to protect us against a threat that they admitted in 2011 in internal documents does not exist at airports or on airplanes. That's where we are.
Join InfoWars for continuing election coverage November 4th, starting at 6 p.m. Central. The InfoWars crew will be broadcasting live from the Central Texas Command Center, as well as reports from the field. We'll break the left-right paradigm and give the analysis of freedom or oppression. Go to prisonplanet.tv or infowars.com/election for the free feed.
Hi, I'm Dr. Group. Today, I'm proud and excited to announce a new product to the InfoWars Life product line. Introducing the first proprietary oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, OxyPowder. Backed by real FDA-approved phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. People are suffering from all kinds of digestive issues these days. All the toxins from the air, the food, the water, everything that you're exposed to on a daily basis ultimately ends up in the gut or affects the gut. My main focus was to come up with a remedy for this, something that's safe and effective that anyone can take on a regular basis to keep their intestinal lining clean. You have over 30 feet of intestinal lining that can be compacted, that can be toxic, that can be full of parasites, fungus, bacteria. What are you doing to keep that clean and flushed out? My recommendation is to clean your intestines at least 2 to 3 times a week to prevent the toxic buildup from going into your bloodstream. You owe it to yourself to take your health into your own hands and start cleansing your body today with Oxy Powder. Secure your Oxy Powder today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.